I'll call the meeting to order at 9:35 a.m. The territorial land acknowledgement is first. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Alnwick-Haldeman is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. The Township of Alnwick-Haldeman respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Item 4, approval of the special council session. Be it resolved that the agenda for the special council session of Thursday, October 6, 2022 be approved as circulated. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Phillips, second. Councillor Hogg, all in favor? Carried. We're here today for item 5, and that's our human resource items, policies and procedures review. Council is reminded, oh no, I don't have to read that. We all brought our binders. Okay, so just a quick question to council decision. Do you want to go through it page by page, or do you wish to go through the ones that you have notes on? If anybody has a note on certain ones that you wish to address or have a comment or question about, I'm just wondering how you want to do it. Or do we need to go through page by page? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been my recommendation, that and that the chair. I'm not sure who's going to run. Are you going to run this one, or are you going to run this one?
I'll probably take a little bit of the lead.
Okay. That you just bring to our attention any changes or anything that is contentious in any way, and we'll do it section by section. That would have been my recommendation.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll get started. Policy manual administration. We have employment principles. Anything in that section?
Are you going to talk about the whole section on like chapter 8, all of 2s? Is that what you were thinking, Pat, or like 2.01 or like?
Like 2.
Okay, so the employment, okay.
Okay, the first one is HR 1.02.ON, and it's the short one. Any questions or comments on it? Seeing none. The next one is HR 2.01-ON, employment principles. Is in this section. I'll have to get to where it goes to. So we can do all of 2, not just each point. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll do it that way. Everybody's good with that?
Yep, that one's fine with me.
2.02.
I'll just add to council too, that we currently use this policy during our last hiring process, which we had an internal candidate that was most qualified for our position of Public Works Admin Asset Management. So we were able to apply this policy. We did advertise internally and externally, but we had an internal candidate that was by far more qualified than, so we were able to just move her up in succession planning in this policy.
Thank you. HR 2.03, terms and conditions of employment. Pretty straightforward. 2.04, probationary period.
I'll just add on this one that this is one, we sent all this whole manual to HR Downloads, who we hired out this year to go through this process. And you're looking at the updated version, but I will say that HR Downloads did correct this and make it, to comply with the ESA Employment Standards Act. So there was upgrades and changes to this one, as our old policy didn't comply. So this is one that's been definitely updated and changed.
Thank you.
Noted.
2.04, probationary period. Yes.
Can I just ask a question? So Troy, when there's a revision like that, will it be noted in the header that there's a revision? Or I always find with policies, there's always those old ones that still float around.
I have what they have changed. I have those, but it hasn't been, it's obviously not documented in here, but I can, is that what you want? You want to see what was changed?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's easiest for everybody, if there is a major revision, because to me, that's not, I mean, minor, you just let it go, write it wording, but this actually changes the intent of the policy. If there should be a note that it was revised on that date.
Yeah, okay. So for example, HR Downloads, they changed the probationary period. Their comment, if the probationary period was extended beyond 3 months, then the employee would be entitled to notice of pay in lieu of notice as required under the ESA. So they made this policy, compliant with the ESA. So
Well, and I guess that's kind of a subjective thing with the staff, whether that's a minor revision or.
Yeah, that's right. But I'll definitely keep the changes and we can add it in, when staff are provided with the manual, I can definitely let staff know what the changes have been, like just give them what I have right here. I can do that.
Okay.
Councillor Philip.
I know that in previous work, any changes to policy, and we had a huge policy manual, twice this thick, maybe, I think there were 2 of them. And what we did was any changes that were made and updated, we dated and put them in the margin so that when you're flipping through, it twigged the employee group that there had been a change. So it worked not only for the CAO as, showing the update, but it also worked for the manager, because the manager was then reminded that policy had changed, and it was just that extra layer of detail that encouraged them to adopt the new principle or the new policy. I don't know whether you can do that, Troy, or whether that's even makes sense.
Well, I do have all the documents that were changed in my hand. I just didn't put them in the binder. So that's very easily, it can be done. So all staff can see what has been changed. So I can do that if we wish.
Just put it on the left-hand side, on the margin, just, change date and, or a little red asterisk or something just to indicate. I think, Sherry, I think that's
Good
not
idea.
a bad idea. And then it's right there in front of everybody.
Okay, no, I can definitely make sure that staff are aware of the updates and changes.
Do
Okay,
we
that
need
would
a
be great.
resolution to that effect? Or you're good?
No,
Okay,
I'll just take out the policies that haven't changed and put in the policy that shows the change. So I can do that very easily.
Just as long as it's a
Clear.
reminder.
Yep.
A reminder to your staff.
Yep, no, it's all good. We
Okay.
very easily can be done.
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay, thank you. H 2.04, we just did that.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good with, everybody's good with that one?
I'm good all the way through to the next major
Okay.
pay and something or whatever it is.
Employment classifications, HR 2.05. That's pretty straightforward.
And I will tell council and the public that you see a lot of forms in there in this document. We do currently use all these forms, so I just wanted council to be aware of that as well. So all the attachments and the forms, we do use them.
I like the idea of seeing the forms in there.
Yeah, and Nicole, she has created some new forms, which, eventually will implement into this policy, and it'll come to council for the next council to look at and approve and stuff. So this will be a working document, over the past, it's sort of just been on their shelf. The next council is going to be well aware of this, and every changes will be up here for approval.
Okay, thank you. Hours of work, HR 2.06. Counselor Booth?
Just through you, your worship, to Troy. So Troy, it talks about 1.01 public works hours. So what's going to happen with the new administrative person then? Is that person going to be working the straight Monday to Friday, or is that person going to be following the public works hours?
Now, our intent for the admin will be 5 days a week.
Okay.
They won't be working the 410s.
So they'll be doing the 9 to 4:30, or is it the 8:30 to 4:30?
They'll be 8:30, 4:30.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's a combination of two jobs, right?
Yeah, they'll be
Asset-
working the
rather than
admin
asset
hours.
management.
Actually, they'll probably be the same as us, like the 9 to 4:30. So they'll be this admin hours.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
because on a
Yeah.
Friday or that,
Yeah.
they're still there.
That's right.
Somebody's on the phone and they can direct stuff to Brian.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good.
And I will say, even though Brian, it does say that Monday to Thursday, he's been in quite a few Fridays, so he usually comes in and gets his admin stuff done on Fridays.
Attendance, HR 2.07. Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Nicole.
That's okay. I just wanted to mention that on policy 2.06, when you were just talking about the hours, I'm wondering for clarification where it says Grafton and then it says Public Works, whether really that rather than say Grafton, it should say administration staff, because generally our administration staff are working that 9 to 4:30, no matter what location they are at.
Right.
That's fine. And they'll be-
Yes.
yeah.
Good idea. Everybody's good with that one?
Yeah.
Attendance, HR 2.07. Any comments, questions?
2.7, I do have changes here. I'll see what was changed. The comment from HR downloads at 7.02. I would make sure this is in the employment contract, or the employee explicitly agrees in writing to this type of potential deduction. So,
Okay.
but again, we'll go over it with staff in detail with all the changes.
Anything else? That's good. Employee orientation, HR 2.08.
I actually like that little chart.
Yeah.
Mhm.
same.
Yeah, I
That
did
was
too.
a dandy idea.
Nothing on this one. Keep going like this, we'll be finished in half an hour.
But we'll have some to talk about.
Yeah, and I like all the forms and how you've got that all set up.
Yeah.
You know, becomes almost, when you look back at the forms, when you're reading it, they make sense and what you're reading makes sense. Training and development, HR 2.09.
These are all forms there.
Yep, and I think these are some of the forms that Nicole may have suggestions on changing. And when we do those changes, we'll bring it to the new council and we will get it approved, put it in our policy. All staff will be aware and stuff like that.
Can I comment on this one, please?
Anytime.
Through you, the mayor. So within this policy in paragraph 1.04, we have experienced some confusion due to not having reference back to another policy. What I would like to recommend that is in 1.04, we reference at the very end of that paragraph, it says business and travel expenses policy, that we actually reference that is HR 2.24 ON. And what I would like to add to that is that provision will also be made for time spent traveling per paragraphs 7.09 and 7.10 of that policy. What we found is that this training policy wasn't referring back to address issues of when staff are traveling for training purposes on off work hours. So that is addressed in the business and travel expense policy. However, this policy really didn't speak to it. So I just want to make sure that that reference is there.
Everybody in agreement? Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think that's-
Confidentiality and inventions. HR 2.10. Nothing. Termination of employment, HR 2.11. Any major changes in
Nope,
that?
not in that one.
Temporary layoffs, HR 2.12. I don't know that we've ever had layoffs.
Nope.
Not since I've been here. Third-party reference requests, HR 2.13. Anything? Seeing none. Employment of relatives, HR 2.14. Gifts, favors, and entertainment, HR 2.15.
I just
Oh,
like, to-
sorry, the other one was 2.14.
Yeah.
15. You have a question, Mike?
Yeah, 2:15. I'd just like to thank council for the Maserati and the new swimming pool.
Anything else you need?
Should cover it.
Visitors to the workplace, HR 216. Like that one too. Conflicts of interest, HR 2.17. Counselor Booth?
Your worship, to Troy, section 5.01 talks about definitions and conflicts of interest, and on H, it says anybody being investigated, charged, indicted, convicted, criminal activity, which may have an impact and bring reputation to the town. I know we've had an issue with that before, so those employees, I guess, are we waiting for whether or not their court stuff has been cleared, and will they be coming back, or?
I will say that right now, we currently, that has been off the shelf, so it's done. So that legal case for any staff or for that staff or part-time staff is done. So they've been cleared of all doing.
So is that person coming back then in the fall? or-
Not totally certain on if they are or are not. They definitely have expressed interest. So we're just going through that now with, or I am going through that now with the manager of Public Works. But right now, that individual has no ongoing investigation or anything. So he's been cleared.
But it doesn't say it's just if you're convicted either. It's even if you're being investigated or charged or whatever. It
Yep.
still leaves the leeway for you and.
Yep.
And the
It does.
manager.
Yeah, but there was no charges and everything is done.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Job postings, HR 2.18. Straightforward.
Yep.
Employment references, HR 2.19. No, we asked for more than one, and if we don't get, can you ask for another one?
We always ask for 3 references.
Yeah, I know,
So,
3, but
Yep.
we don't always get 3.
Yeah.
Most times.
Yeah, most times we do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Exit interviews, HR 2.20.
I will say that this is probably one that I would like to see used more often, even with our summer students, because I do feel that they can provide good feedback to us. So this is something that I'd like to see implemented a little bit more amongst our senior staff. So
Flexible work arrangements, HR 2.21. All good. Volunteers, HR 2.22.
Question.
Counselor Booth?
Under 1.04 talks about volunteers that they have to complete a police vulnerable sector check. So are we offering to pay for those checks for the volunteers or no? That question was asked before a few years ago when we.
it's up for a discussion, but I know that usually it's the volunteers or the candidate or whatever, it's at their expense, not townships.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sherry.
There may be an opportunity if it's through a particular police force. 'Cause if you would presume that anybody who's volunteering for us is living in the township would be OPP. And I think if you approach them, they will do volunteer police checks free of
Okay.
charge.
Okay, good.
Yes, they used to do that for us.
The other thing that I might add to that discussion is that if you volunteer in more than one area, like, for example, you will volunteer with the township, but you also volunteer for the school board, we always paid for those checks because we were using the same check for more than one thing. So that was the argument that the school board always used to give us, that, you paid for your own check, which I thought was a little, I didn't agree with it, but I understood that, if you volunteer for the church, then the same police check could be used. But I agree, and but Sherry's comment is accurate. I've often had it waived
Yes.
by the OPP.
Yes, they were.
Well, I know on the application too to the OPP, you have to check a box there that says whether you're doing it for work or whether it's actual volunteer work.
Yeah.
So maybe the town can make arrangements with them to, if we're getting the volunteers back, to look at possibly subsidizing it or paying it or whatever to. But we used to accept them, anything at my last place of employment that was 6 months, as long as it was within 6 months, then they would still accept it so that you didn't have to keep going back, right?
Mhm.
But it might be something to look at in the future that.
Have a blanket policy.
I had one item as well. It's 1.13, social media C. And it talks about derogatory, disrespectful and unethical language toward the township staff. Township staff or any council member by a volunteer. I'm wondering if to another volunteer should be added.
Good idea.
Yep, doesn't hurt. Have it in writing.
It's, I just was thinking that maybe should be added if you're all in agreement. Nicole?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at, it's 7.07 of the volunteers. And I just noticed that we have referenced in there the 53 cents per kilometer rate. I'm wondering if it just makes sense to remove the reference to 53 cents. We're already saying that it's consistent with the current prescribed reimbursement rate. I think if we just remove that 53 cents, then we'll just refer to the prescribed rate that's been passed by council.
Yeah, it won't date the policy.
Good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Thank you. Yes,
Through you, I didn't see anywhere in there about time sensitivity to a vulnerable sector check, or, like if somebody had a vulnerable sector check done by another organization 7 months prior to starting with the township, do you accept it? So it may be an idea to just put a limit in there if you can provide a check within this amount of time, that it will be acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, we
And
can make a note of that.
I don't know, probably,
6
like,
months.
we use 6 months, but
Okay, that's good to know.
Makes sense. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I think 6 months.
Yeah.
Especially if they're having to pay
See
for them
Pat
over and
writing, so
over.
I'm assuming she's taking notes. Thank you.
Drug and alcohol testing, HR 2.33.
This has been updated to, for all the cannabis requirements or whatever, so. It's just, because it used to just, yeah.
And the medical,
Cannabis is in there
the
now.
medical stuff that was in there,
Yeah.
yes. Business and travel expenses, HR 2.24. Any comments? Nicole? I thought I'd be ahead of you. Independent contractors, HR 2.25. Nothing. Dealing with government inspectors, HR 2.26. Student employment, HR 2.27.
Can I just ask one question, just to clarify, at the very last one, 7.11, where it talks about students shall receive an increase in their hourly wage of $1 for every subsequent summer. So if a student was here for 5 years, they would be on $5 extra, is that?
That has been the rule. And when I first started in Public Works in 2012, there was a Public Works student that was here for almost, 4 or 5 years. And that's the way it was. Yeah, they made.
Interesting, if you had a student that was here for 30 years, they'd be making, oh, I'm making $50 an hour. That would be great, but
Yeah,
I'm sure it's fine. I mean, usually students only stay for a few years.
Yeah, the norm. This was a little bit a different case, but he was a student for, I think it was 5 years. And
Okay.
so he was.
Well, that's good if it
making
brings
good
them
money.
back, then.
But I think the most, since that individual, I think the most it would be 3 years I've seen a student return.
Good to bring them back.
Well, it depends on what degree they're going after, whether,
Yeah.
you know. Interns and, excuse me, co-op students, HR 2.28. Don't have too many of those.
No, we used to. I had them in Public Works when I first started, and we haven't had them in a while, but we've just recently, and then obviously COVID and stuff, but we just recently have interest in having co-op in our arena for the winter. So working with the school and having somebody there. So it works out for both, gives them work skills and another body in the building for us.
I think a good idea for a co-op student too is, and maybe we need to approach the high schools, is a co-op student in administration, because they have no idea about municipal jobs.
I've been fortunate enough to have a really close connection to the high school. So I have already reached out to that individual, and there is a notice on the board.
Well, that's good,
Yeah.
because, you know, you hear it all the time, and in speaking with the kids, it's, well, I didn't know.
So it's advertised out there that we do encourage and accept co-op.
Good. Foreign workers, HR 2.29. Clothing allowance, HR 2.30.
Question?
Yes, Councillor Bruce?
I'm just wondering, Troy, if whether it be here for the next budget anyway, or any of us, that we could look at, it talks about 6.02, where it talks about the public works people, that they get $300 per year. Would it be possible for Brian to make it easier in the budget? Is my last place of employment, they would say you have 10 employees, you get $300. The budget is $3,000, so that it's easier for us that when we're looking at it to say, you know, however many employees Brian has, it's multiplied by 300. So there's no, every department's doing the same, because if you look the next page over at 6.04, it talks about that would be Daryl's guys, and they're allowed so much too. So $300, it just makes it easier that it's for everybody to show how many employees you have times 300.
Yeah, after our last budget experience, I will make sure that it's well-defined and well marked out, so it's easy reading and understandable for
Yeah.
this budget.
So all
process.
departments are doing the same, so you don't see Parks
That's
and
correct.
Rec that for some reason they have less employees but more money or
Yeah.
something than.
No,
Public
I
Works.
agree.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a comment.
Oh, sorry.
Before you go to chapter C, if I could.
Yes,
Um, A question first and then followed by a comment. Troy, is it your plan to have this policy manual as it sits for the managers to use? Or are you going to break it down into sections? Is it going to be one document or many documents?
No, I think every senior manager will have what we have on our desk, and all their staff will have access to it and be educated on it and signed off on it. So
Okay.
there, because I think you can't do it by departments or whatever, because it affects every staff through every section. So this will be the document that every staff member in A&H will have.
Okay, and so my comment is, for ease of use, and then this may be already decided by you, but for ease of use, I would appreciate it if if the document was numbered front to back, and page.
Yep. Okay.
That way, when you're having your meetings, you can say, well, we're looking at document such and such on page 153, and everybody can flip to it. I found when I was going back and forth that I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah, we can do that.
thank you.
I found that as well.
I think it was probably just an oversight on.
Yeah,
on your
and
part.
I tried to do some administrative work on it, and I probably failed on that part.
Yeah, well, it'll just
Yeah.
work so much
Yeah,
easier.
no, I agree.
You've done such a nice job, you might as well page it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Before we get into chapter C, we do have one that was approved at council, and it was policy number 2.31. For whatever reason, it was missed out of this, and that is our vaccination policy.
I
So-
was looking for that.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, again, me and my administrative ways, I missed it, but that was brought forth to council. It's policy 2.31, and it's our vaccination. It's still in effect. We still are currently going by it, where every new employee, needs to be vaccinated. How we treat, someone who has the symptoms, we go by, Yolanda's done a lot of work on it by, Ontario Health and stuff. So we're following those rules, but we still are asking all employees to be vaccinated. I've had many meetings at the CAO level, and there are some that never did implement it in their township, but majority are keeping it, and the word is they want to keep it for the winter months. They expect everything to be lifted in the spring and change their policies then, but right now it seems like everyone is keeping their policy in hand. So it can be, I'll open it up for discussion because it's a big issue.
Any questions, comments? Can we have that today, just a copy of it?
Yep, I can get that.
Later on.
Yep.
We don't need it
Yep.
right now.
Certainly. Yeah.
I had a call from a person who wanted to apply in fire services and doesn't have a vaccination.
Yeah, no, and that individual did reach out to me as well. And I did mention that our policy is still in place. And I personally would like to keep it in place. We had 98 staff that have went above and beyond. Some didn't agree with it, but they went out and got vaccinated. So, I do understand that there's individuals that would love to be on the volunteer fire department, but I got to think of everyone else that did go out and do it I don't know. Again, I'll open it up for discussion. It's a policy. It can be changed, lifted. But right now, our policy says that all employees need to be vaccinated.
Go ahead.
Well, I am 100% in favor of retaining that policy until such time as, maybe in the spring, we'll get a, full out, we're good to go. But I think it's important. I think, we implemented it, people followed it, maybe some against their will, but to lift it now, it doesn't make sense when we're still coming up against surges. And our medical director at work is really pushing the bivalent booster. And, I think that not only having the policy in place protects the people that you work with, but I think it shows a bit of a culture of caring and I guess just being a part of a workforce community. So I wouldn't like to see it lifted, and it's very personal though.
How many times more, will they be vaccinated, again this fall? We've already had 3, right? Some
Yeah.
have had 4.
Yeah, and I think that's the fourth one is the last one to date, I think. But then you're
I
talking
think
about
there's a fifth.
the
The
fourth.
bivalent is the 5th,
Fifth.
but I didn't get my 4th booster. I
I didn't
skipped it and I got the bivalent, which has become my 4th booster.
So do I have to get the 5th then now? Because I've had 4 of the old fashioned.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're recommending I have 5 now.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And likely it'll become like our annual flu shot. You'll just go and get it.
And they're recommending that too, the flu shot, the old fashioned flu shot.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree, but my question is this, it's strictly a legal question, and that is, are we going to be able to avoid the problem that we had with our employee group and it costs and the ramifications of that? I don't want to, I think probably that's mostly not to be discussed publicly.
No,
So
we
my
shouldn't be.
question is to Troy, can we enforce it without getting into trouble financially?
Well, it's a big question. Others are doing it. There is some municipalities that offer to have employees still who are unvaccinated come in and work. However, they got to do weekly tests and stuff like that at their expense. Right now, we're not. It's really the volunteer firefighter, because we're trying to recruit firefighters, and so that's the department that is in question right now. Like we're not in a big hiring, in administrative or public works, too bad, but it's the volunteer firefighting. And I was speaking with the chief, and he supports the document. However, when you get into legal, I'm not a lawyer. We could be challenged on it. But any policy could be challenged, I guess. But right now, we haven't went down that path for anyone who wants to work here and is challenging our policy. They're not happy with the policy, but they're not challenging it.
I think there are several organizations and businesses that have that written in.
Yeah.
I mean, when Community Care Northumberland posts for jobs, it's right in the posting. You must have 2 vaccinations.
Yeah.
Don't come for an interview, like you won't be chosen.
Yeah, we did our search, and like Deputy Mayor said, there's majority of the job ads out there do have that stated in there.
So as long as they've had 2 vaccinations, they can apply. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And
Okay.
that's in our policy?
Yep.
Okay, well then. we were-
I find there's more and more who aren't moving on with
Yeah.
vaccination.
Yeah.
Or
Got their
extra
two and-
vaccination. Okay. And,
Yeah, but just 2 vaccinations, wouldn't you be outdated if you got them in the early last year? It'd be outdated now unless you get the 3rd one, right?
I don't know if they've even proven that, have they?
I would
There's so
think-
much out there
Oh.
that's confusing.
Yeah,
So what about a new council? They've all got to be vaccinated?
Well,
Good question.
Well-
that has been a question, and I did ask you guys to be vaccinated. Did we not go through that process where
Yes.
you guys had to sign the form and to be
Yes.
vaccinated? So I would put council in the same category as staff.
Should be
Exactly.
just a overarching HR
Yeah.
policy, which includes council.
But it needs to be written in here, I think then.
Yeah.
Or,
But that's a good question Jim brought up. Maybe Troy,
Yeah.
you can have you and Pat look that. Does it need to be updated to talk about, would you need a 3rd shot or a 4th? Or like Sherry said, do you need the special one from the Omni one? You know, if you got, I'm sure it's a moral type issue, right? People that don't want to get the shot are not getting the shot, right? And people that have got 1 or 2 shots, you know, probably are not against getting another one if they had to or whatever. So, and I understand your point, Mike, about, I think we as an employer, like Sherry said, can say, you know, don't even bother applying unless you have these shots, because we're not going to take you, right? And I don't think anybody would fight that one. It's more
Yeah.
internally telling
yeah,
people to
getting
get the
caught.
shot, and then they don't want to get it, and then we
Yeah.
run into issues. But Troy said all of our employees that we have on staff now have had their shot. So that's a
we're
good question
proactive.
about the candidates. That's going to
Yeah.
be something that comes up if the
That
new
should come
mayor
up.
doesn't have the shot or something. That's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
As long as the person's sitting beside Troy, that's okay.
Yeah, I think Jim's got a point there. I think I agree. Just, let's not lose that piece. Like, what is the latest
Mhm.
recommendation?
and, people have rights and they have medical rights for not getting one. So I guess if it's like, where do we stand on medically? And I know that's few and far between,
Medical exemption.
medical exemption to getting a vaccine. It could come up.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get an update.
Oh, sorry. I will add the current policy that we have. It states this policy applies to all members of Township of Alnwick Haldeman Council, employees of the township, including full-time, part-time, contract employees, volunteers, and students. So it is listed in this policy that council is. I thought it said somewhere, but
So we're still asking contractors then if they're vaccinated. Okay,
So can I ask
We're
a
clear.
question then that's directed to Pat? Pat, should that not be known to the 12 candidates that are all running, that there's potentially could be an issue? I'm not sure if there is, that you might want to send something out to them to say, okay. Because I know you're very up to date on informing all the candidates of everything, and that might be a potential problem for some people to say, you know what, just so that you know, before you get sworn in November, when is it, the 14th, 17th, you better have that.
I would imagine most or all would have had it anyways, I would think, but you never know. Pay principles, now we're into section 3. 3.01. And I think we need to talk about COLA in this one.
yeah, it's coming.
3.04.
Okay, anything with the first one? Pay principles, that's just the principles of things. Job descriptions, HR 3.02. Lots of forms in here and things to be filled out. There's a few pages numbered in there. I'm going over them one page at a time. Job evaluations, HR 3.3. Anything, council, on these?
Nope.
Pay administration, HR 3.04.
Yes.
Cost of living.
Yeah, so this is
Yes.
the COLA one.
Yeah,
What I'll do is I'm going to read what our current cost of living says, and then we can talk about it, because I think it needs to be discussed. And Nicole will be able to provide all the work she's done on this. I didn't want to make any changes to this on purpose, because I wanted it to be a discussion, so.
I
The
think we
township-
all have notes on this one.
Yeah, oh yeah, and yeah. The township of A&H shall include a cost of living adjustment effective January 1st of each year, and it shall be calculated using the CPI. For the annual increase, the CPI from October in the current year, and is to be used in place for the effective date in the next year. The amount shall never be negative. So again, Nicole, you're probably going to have to take over here because you have all the numbers. I will tell council that Nicole has done a lot of work on research on it with all their neighboring townships, and we all know right off the hop that, you know, it needs to be changed. So I'm not going to say that staff are going to defend this. We all, you know, because you're going to hear the numbers here in a minute, but I will say that we're here to discuss it because we know that it needs to be, you know, realistic. Go ahead, Nicole.
Through you, Mayor. So there's a few things that I looked at, knowing that this would be up for discussion. One of the things I want to clarify too, for anybody who's wondering why we may have used the October yearly inflation rate in the past, if you go on the website and you look at the CPI and inflation rates, they're always 2 months behind posting that. So when we are trying to determine at January 1, we're usually doing those calculations and getting the pay grid updated in December. So that allows us to do that. I did find when I went to the MFOA conference last week, I spoke with a number of different treasurers as well. I sat in on a municipal treasurers group. It was any municipalities of population of 20,000 or less. So a lot of them were using the same method that we have been using, and obviously coming up against the same issue at this 4.9 that we had last year. So what I looked at was, where are we sitting in 2022? Because I think all of the treasurers were kind of saying they were trying to come up with you know, a realistic number without sending, you know, budget numbers way out of whack. Because right now the average for this year is running around 7%. So I am seeing, I just printed the rates out again today to make sure I had August numbers. And over the past 3 months, the monthly inflation rate has decreased. And so that tells me that The year over year will also slowly be decreasing. I expect probably by October, we're going to be sitting probably somewhere between the 6 and 7%, if we were to use that same yearly inflation rate. And when I talk about that, we're comparing the CPI at October this year versus the CPI at October last year. Now, the other thing I've done is I've also asked each of the municipalities within Northumberland County to see where they are at, because these inflation rates I'm using, just so you know, they are the Ontario ones. They're not for Canada, they're for our province. And the one thing that I want to make sure that you're aware is that a lot of the municipalities also within the county do have unions. So they're dealing with collective agreements, and some of them have their collective agreements in place, say from 2020 forward to 2023. So for who have I had? I've got Trent Hills, Crammy, and the county. They were running for 2022, 2023 with rates between 1.75 and 2%. Now, in saying that, they established those back at a time when we weren't seeing the fluctuation that we're seeing now, and the cost of living really for everyone going up. Do I expect at some point it will go back down? It will. And I think so. We have to remember that consistency is important. Do I think 7% is realistic? No, because I think we already have enough struggles with, making sure that we come up with a reasonable budget without, putting huge increases to taxes out to our residents. So I think we have to do due diligence in trying to find a way to smooth that out. What I will tell you is that Coburg did also just finished negotiating their agreement, and they have and it's for their QP employees, and they have a 3-year contract. They are getting a 3% increase 2022, 2023, and 2024. So just putting it out there as a potential recommendation, something that was talked about in my meetings. I've also talked with Troy about it, is potentially putting a cap in place so that we use the same method that we're using now. However, we put in place, whether it be 3% or something lower than that. And then another thought that Troy and I were talking about was potentially even ensuring that at some point our staff actually do get that smoothing effect and do get brought up to the inflation rate and the cost of living that we're living with, is that we could bank the additional percent. So for instance, say this year does land at 7%, and we were to put in a cap at 3%, we would throw 4% into a bank. So in a year that maybe we're looking at a 0% inflation going forward, so we've seen the inflation rate come back down, that our staff can then be compensated for the fact that they hadn't been brought up to the cost of living at that time. And then that would smooth things out. We would draw from that bank, again, keeping the max in mind. So even if there was 4% sitting in that bank, we wouldn't pull that 4% out. We would only pull to the maximum, whatever that cap would be that would be set. So that's kind of the work that I've done, and I for sure would be open to any questions with regards to that.
Councillor Phil.
Okay, so to Troy and Nicole through the mayor, how did you come up with the cap, and could it be questioned?
Yes.
So I'm not, Counselor Phillip, through the mayor, I'm not saying that that cap should be or shouldn't be. I'm saying that you could set it at whatever you felt was reasonable. What I'm trying to propose to you is that what some townships are doing is, because they have a collective agreement, they're having to state what that rate is over the next few years. But if we were wanting to create the same effect, but keep the policy where it is, to keep that consistency, so that when the rate smooths back out on its own, we'll be right back kind of where we have been, which has tended to be over most years between 1.5% to 2.5%. The policy already states that if it goes into a negative, then staff are not getting an increase. However, I think it's important to recognize that we have had an increased cost of living for everyone, but I don't think that we want to put ourselves in a position where we're issuing that increase all at once. It's such a huge change, and it would be a huge change in 1 year to our budget.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Through the mayor, Nicole, putting the percentages into a bank to me seems a little bit like double dipping, because the cost of living increase is cumulative. So pays never go down. So you're getting what you deserve, and it's continuing on, and it's not a part of a merit increase. So if there's ever a year that there was no cost of living, but there's a bank there and you're giving it, to me, you already got it. And if there's no cost of living, you shouldn't be getting a cost of living increase. It's to ensure that the employees are treated fairly. So I don't like that bank idea.
I agree with that as well, because if you're banking, you're still banking through a raise in the taxes. It sounds like, well, we're going to give the employees, let's say 2%, we could give them 3 or whatever, but we're going to bank money. You still got to collect that from the taxpayers. So it's almost a shadow. I'm not in favor of the banking percentages. Councillor Booth?
I understand the reason for the banking, and I agree with the comments that are made, is that it's to try and smooth it out, right? So really, when you think about it, if employees are supposed to get 7% this year, that's way too much for us to go to the taxpayers to say we're going to give them 7%. So we're going to give you 3 and we're going to bank so I mean, we have to be careful, right? If you're not banking, then are you giving them the 7%? I understand what you're doing, Nicole, right? Is you're trying to make it smooth so that we don't get the highs and lows where you go 1 year where you get nothing. But if it's 7 or 10%, we're seeing inflation rates we haven't seen in decades, right? It's a tough situation, right? I think the one advantage for us is because we're non-union, we don't have to get stuck like some people like Coburg, where they're giving 3, 3, and 3. We're looking at ours every year, and we're making a decision on the COLA every year, which gives us a little bit more flexibility, right?
Yes.
But then again, you had Crammy and Trent Hills. You said, Nicole, that it's advantageous for them because they were giving 1.75 and 2%. I bet you their employers are not too happy right now that when the cost of living 7% and they're only going to get 1.75. So it's a bit of a crapshoot, right? Either way you go.
It also could be an annual discussion for council. So every September, you know what, we see where the world is, and it's like we don't have a union, so it could be just an annual discussion with senior staff or myself and Nicole to discuss with council and come up with whatever it is. So in the policy, you know, it's, you know, every September, you know, it's a topic for discussion at council for cost of living.
Well, that's why I agree with Sherry and the mayor is maybe it's something that council looks at to say, if we decide the cap is 3%, well, next year, the council at that day, you know, you and the treasurer can come and say, listen, it was actually 7% last year. We only gave 3. So, and then there can be that discussion, right?
Yep.
Because I agree with you, Mayor, that to bank it, then you're sort of, you know, it's going to be a tax increase no matter what. So whether you're deferring it for a year, you're still going to get slammed the next year, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it's still COLA, whether it's a 3% raise to the taxpayer for COLA or whether it's 7 or 8, whether it's in the bank or where it is.
Could I just ask one question though? Nicole, how is it that Canada Pension and private pension plans and everything, I don't see theirs going up 5, 6, 7%. Is Canada Pension, for example, using something different, a different calculation or something? Because I don't see anybody in old age pension getting a 6% raise in their, so are they using a different calculation or?
Through you, Mayor, to be honest, I'm not sure what CRA what they're using as their basis. What I can tell you just from doing personal income tax for a number of years, that they are almost consistently a 2% increase every year in around that. So I would say they've likely adopted some sort of across the board. So whether it's low or not, they continue to increase by 2%. So if the inflation rate is at 0, they're doing 2. And I guess really that's kind of what I've been talking about. And I understand Sherry's comments about the cumulative impact of that. So maybe a bank isn't necessarily the best way, but some way in that if all of a sudden things flatten out and we end up at 0 in a year, staff aren't wondering why in a year where, you know, the inflation has gone up and their cost of living has gone up, that the wage hasn't been reflective of that yet in a year where it goes down. You know, there's nothing, right? So that's the only thing I would caution you on, is that there's got to be some way to smooth it out, and whether that be that I think Troy's idea is great. You know, there was some talk also at the conference of some that they have their policy, but it also states in the policy that this is how they do it, but that it still has to come to council for approval, and they have the right to overrule what the calculation says. So.
Councillor Philip?
I agree with the mayor and the deputy mayor and Councillor Booth that I think that it's well within the parameter of the CAO and treasurer to determine what that rate is on a yearly basis. And I think you can fine tune it more accurately that way because you'll have all the data in front of you. So I would prefer, I'm simply agree. That's my position.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. The Nicole, I lost my train of thought. I think it's difficult, especially in these times, and we know the cost of living is high. It's high for everyone. We have a really good grid system here for increases in wages as well. and we try and meet those on a yearly basis or steps within on a yearly basis. And then you're adding, not you, but we add more with the percentage for COLA. And each year, it's not like it's just a simple,
It's cumulative.
yeah, it's cumulative. And when we're at high inflation, it adds quite a bit to the taxpayers' budget as well. And I just think there's other perks here in this township as well, and I think our employees certainly appreciate that. And I just worry about those that don't have as taxpayers and whatnot. There's many more now than what there was. It's hard to come to a fair level. I think I would like to see, and I don't know, but for this year, you know, a maximum maybe of 2.5% or 3%. I'm not saying that's what it should be, but I'm just throwing out the figures that I think. If we had lots of money and, you know, Coburg can do what they want. They've got all the industry. They get big dollars from, but we can't compare ourselves to Coburg. And it puts the council in an awful position, but at the same time, we have to be fair to the staff, so.
And I just want to reiterate that staff realize, like this is why it's a discuss, because not one senior manager is coming say we want 7-8%. So I really want that, knowing that we know that it was unrealistic of what is
Yes,
in our
I know,
policy.
I
So I
know.
just want to really make sure that no staff is, under the impression of we're coming here that we want it. So that's why we wanted it on the table to discuss and be really realistic and be, the same as our neighboring townships who may have union and whatever. So I just really want to make sure that council knows that. So.
Councillor Booth?
So going forward from here, can we look at that, Nicole, would it be you and Troy that would come to the next council with a recommendation of whether it's 1.5, 2 or 3, or I don't think it would be fair to put the pressure on this outgoing council to say we're giving 2, 3, whatever it is, because we won't be here for the budget.
Exactly.
So I think the next council is going to have to make that decision to say whether it's 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever it is, because they're going to have to then coordinate that number into the budget, and what's it's going to mean is the bottom line, right?
Yeah, and also maybe Pat can jump in here too, but we come into the lame duck where, can this council even make any kind of decision, because it could potentially be over the $50,000 for all of staff to have an increase. So yeah, I don't.
Plus we have more staff, right, than we
yeah,
did last year.
So,
But we could make just simply a recommendation. Not, this is what we want to be.
Not what the number.
no.
Well, we don't decide this early anyway. Really, we don't decide what the increase is until what Nicole is saying, until you get closer to January, right, Nicole? Because you're looking at the October one.
Through
we
you,
just-
Mayor, I would almost suggest that we now as staff have all of your comments and thoughts with regards to this. And I think that we could, if you so desire, put together a report to council and bring it back to the new council once it's in place to be passed, but based on discussion. I don't know what Troy and Pat's thoughts are on that. Again, I think bringing up the topic as well of lame duck, like I would have to sit down and figure out what the impact would be, but certainly if it's going to have a large impact, plus it would have for sure have an impact on our 2023 budget, that it may be something that we do want to bring back as a report.
I agree that we staff do a report, we have everyone's comments, and we are starting our 2023 budget process right now, so it will probably be sooner than later, so.
So then do we flag HR 304 7.01E as forwarding it for a decision to the new council that we. So that's the recommendation that we meet today. Yeah, that we're not just leaving it there as it is. We're looking for change, but we're leaving it because the next council will be doing the budget.
We requested a report.
And we've requested a report
But
for the
Pat-
new council.
Does that need to change the writing in there? Because that doesn't say that in here. It just says that it will be done by this. Should we not be adding in, like Nicole said, and it will also be at the discretion of council, or has to be passed by council or something?
Well, that's basically what we want in this email, but we just want to flag to them that we didn't.
Yeah, I just don't
Because
want
they're
somebody
going
coming
forward,
back,
that-
Gail, saying, well, what it reads right now is you will do this.
No,
Yes.
we'll bring, we will make adjustments to the policy as well as a report. on
Okay,
COLA.
yeah,
So
just to
there'll be
say,
two items.
It's the
there.
same thing we're asking. I just didn't want
That's right.
somebody to come and say, that's not how it reads right now, and we're entitled to.
Yes, okay, but we can make that as a recommendation.
That ultimately it's at the
in a
discretion
motion?
of council.
Okay, do you have it worded exactly the way it should be? Because that's a fairer way to do it as well, I think. Thanks, Nicole, for all that information.
Okay.
Yeah, we got this motion here, recommendation, not a motion. That's it? For 701E. Pay administration COLA. Is everybody comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with that, Nicole?
Can you please repeat? Pat's on mute.
Yeah, I couldn't hear her either.
Thank you.
Sorry. So it's to request a report from staff regarding pay increase in the new council to decide during budget process, the procedure of 7.01E, pay administration and COLA.
Okay, is everyone satisfied with that?
Did you mention report in there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
So I can call him for the motion? Have a mover? Counselor Philp, second. Counselor Booth? All in favor? Carried, it's unanimous. We're going into job performance review. This was well written. I thought it was very, very good explanation. Job performance review, HR 3.05. Any questions or comments on this one?
Just a couple typos. There's a few spots where it says county in there, so I'll get those changed.
Question through you, Mayor, to CAO. So at a minimum then, Troy, every staff is getting a review on their file at least once, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
And we've implemented, we even do a 6-month review. That way, if someone sort of needs to pick up, they have 6 months to pick up.
Okay, good, thank you.
And where are we now? 305?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm at 307. I've lost 306. We have 306 in
Yeah,
here.
306 is a pay structure. That needs to be updated in our policy. It's still, for
Oh, there
whatever
it is.
reason, still had the 2016 in there, so I need to update that chart.
Okay, this is pay range structure, HR 3.06.
That was my comment as well. Please upgrade the,
Oh, yes.
update the pay range.
Anything else on that one? Nothing? HR 3.07 is overtime.
There was one significant change in there, and it's 1.02, where it says an employee must have prior approval before working overtime so that the township may properly manage and allocate the work. If an employee does not obtain approval in advance, it used to say the employee may not be paid such approval. However, that's been changed where even if unapproved, the employee would still need to be paid for the hours of work. That's a legal issue which has been changed in our policy.
Okay, anything else on that one? Reporting pay. HR 3.08. Pretty basic in a rare case. Call-in pay, that's HR or 3.09. Callbacks. Anything on that one? Nothing. Wage garnishments, HR 3.10. Payroll advances, HR 3.11. It's rare as well. Right. If at all. Now we're into section 4. Benefits principles, HR 4.01. This is the staff benefits. Anything?
Nope.
Vacation and vacation pay, HR 4.02.
I think Nicole has something to comment.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Through you, Mayor. If you look at 1.05, the paragraph on vacation scheduling, it has been past process from speaking with Troy and my finance payroll staff that we normally don't allow without special approval for more than 1 week's vacation to be carried forward into the next year. So I just wanted to add a part C to paragraph 1.05 to say any vacation owing over and above the minimum ESA weeks required to be taken in section A above may be carried forward to the subsequent year to a maximum of 1 week of vacation.
And does,
Have to be approved, right?
Yes.
That would have to be approved, right, by the CAO?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
and does this have to be used prior to March 31st, as in some cases?
I don't think that we have required that in the past.
It's not.
I thought we did.
writing. Usually, if there's anything that's to be carried over, it's we encourage to use right away. So,
Yeah, it would be the first time used before they would start using the current allotment.
And can we carry over year after year? No.
Well, they'd have to get special permission every
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's a medical thing or your holidays are canceled because of something
Yep.
and you request it. I
Or
wouldn't think it
something
would be,
special.
yeah, I wouldn't think you'd give
Circumstances.
permission year
But
after
you-
year just
no.
because
No.
they didn't want to use it.
We couldn't do that. Anything else on vacation and vacation pay? Okay, holidays, HR 4.03. These are the stat holidays. Comments, questions? Personal leave of absence, HR 4.04. Based on individual reasons. Okay. Religious leave, HR 4.05. Not straightforward. Pregnancy leave, HR 4.06. Parental adoption leave, HR 4.07. Bereavement leave, HR 4.08.
I'll comment on this. It was in section 1.04, the comment, it used to have personal emergency leave no longer exists. The personal emergency leave policy can be removed as it's aligned with previous legislation. So there was in there, like, obviously personal emergency leave. So the HR downloads corrected that.
Okay, so they've corrected it
So
to
that's corrected.
1.04.
Yeah, that's correct in there now. So,
Okay. Educational Assistance Program, HR 4.09. Any comments or questions on this program? It's good for the staff.
Yep.
Very good. Seminars and conferences, HR 4.10. A professional association membership, HR 4.11. Here we have personal emergency leave, HR 4.12. Any questions or comments on this one? Short-term disability sick pay benefits, HR 4.13. Retirement, HR 4.14. What's it say about council? Nothing.
That's where you get the Maserati again.
Family medical leave and family caregiver leave, HR 4.15. Anything on that one? No. Jury or court witness leave, HR 4.16.
Oh, that's the law.
Elections, HR 4.17. Military reservist leave of absence, HR 4.18.
Go back.
Yes,
Just
which
to
one?
4.17 with the elections.
Okay.
With a lot of this going electronic, is it necessary to have this policy? I guess really for federal, you have to show up. Yeah. Okay. Answers my question.
Employee and Family Assistance Program, HR 4.19. Employee Recognition Program, HR 4.20.
This is something that we need to tidy up. This has sort of been like the length of service and stuff. So I was just discussing with Diane, who has all the firefighters and stuff. So this is something that I'll be discussing over the next couple weeks because I don't know when the last time we've done it. It's been quite a while. So just so council knows, we're looking into it and we want to get caught up with this with our staff.
Yeah, I think we've missed some big ones.
We have missed some big wins, and I'm not saying it, but me in 10 years.
You're not getting enough.
Just
Forget it.
just want to say it, Troy Gilmore, 10 years.
Socks, maybe.
Oh, missed. He's missed.
How are you? Greg, have you seen the CAO socks? Scary.
All right, let's carry on.
Can I ask a question about that? So at budget time, do the managers look at that to see how many employees they have that might be getting possibly $300 or something? Or what budget does that come out of? Maybe
It does
Nicole?
come out of everyone's budget, but it's something that really hasn't been looked at and followed and stuff. That's why I really want to make a point that we follow this and we do our research and let the department heads know what is coming up so we can have it in the budget.
And that
So,
would be nice for council to know that when they're
That's right.
presenting their budget to say, oh, by the way, I have 3 people getting a 30-year award this year. So there's $1,000 in there to,
yeah, so it's it's just been unfortunately neglected over the last few years.
It's nice too, when
Yeah.
they come into council or we go to one of their meetings. And the first few years here, it was going on, right? That you and I were here. So, yeah, and they
I have-
appreciate it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this is not very much for some of this. How many years has this been that, like those figures?
Forever.
Since I've been there, 2012.
Yes, they haven't changed.
Like 40 years for $400. That's not very much.
And that's something that maybe the next council could look at, but right now I just think we need to get caught up and we do have a couple employees that are 40 years plus. That's pretty amazing. So, but we missed some good 10 years.
How many is that past one? Company vehicles, HR 4.21.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
One of them is just the form where it talks about that if they're using the town vehicle, it'll be 50 cents per kilometer. Is that going to be updated? I believe that should be 53 now, is it?
58.
58?
Yep.
So that form, Nicole, talks about if you're operating the company vehicle or something and you will reimburse the town at 50 cents per kilometer. That has to be just fixed.
58.
Yep.
And the other one is at the very end of policy 4.21, it talks about the township reserves the right to make periodic checks of employee driver abstracts and to revoke an employee's ability to. So can you confirm how often are we doing a driver's abstract on staff that use the vehicle?
Well, not that I want staff to be listening, but we have the approval to, I can do it once a week, once a month. And I do work with Diane, and we do it quite often to all of our staff. So all the staff that are driving, so.
And that includes the voluntary firefighters, right?
That is correct.
Okay, good.
So Diane, I will say that she does an outstanding job at keeping track of it. And I do always throw in a special request every now and then to do a check. So
Okay, no,
she
that's
definitely
good.
does it, everybody on a monthly basis, but I'll throw in the odd one.
No,
every
that's
now and
good. It's, even
Yeah.
if you're doing a random thing, it's just good to make
Yep.
sure that somebody hasn't lost their license, or you don't want
Yep.
them driving a fire truck and found out that for 6 months they
Nope.
haven't had their,
No.
that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do it quite a bit, probably more. I will go out on a limb and say we probably do it more than any other township.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's good to know.
I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, well, and the firefighters, they have to keep that up in the public works for
Yeah,
sure.
I would have missed that one completely.
Just going back to the employee recognition program 4.2, and Jim's mentioned the amounts. Do we make a recommendation there for the next council to have a look at that, or just leave it? Which, how do you want to?
I don't think we should be putting
No, I'm
putting
not.
our recommendations onto the incoming council in that way. I think they'll review it, right? You'll review the
Yeah.
policies with them. and,
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully somebody from around this table will bring some of that information forward.
Yeah, and I will say that, and I've discussed with a lot of people that have received it. Yeah, it's not a lot of money. No one is going to get rich over this. It's more of the just being recognized more than
Mhm.
it is the monetary.
Can I make a comment too? I know my last place of employment, instead of just doing a monetary thing now, there's a program, Pat, where they can actually go on and they can select a gift. So depending on what year you're at, if you're at 10 years or whatever, and you can go and pick I don't know, if it's like a glass globe, or if you wanted a watch or something, instead of just getting $200,
Yep.
which really, you end up then going to Shoppers Drug Mart and buying some stuff and you forget all about it.
Butter.
It would be nice, yeah, butter. But it'd be nice to have a watch or something like that, or something to put on. So maybe, and I agree with Sherry, we wouldn't want to put the restrictions on it, but staff
No.
could look at something like that. So it would be more meaningful if you had something.
And just this morning during this, I received an email from Diane about it. So it's something that her and I can sort of maybe take a lead and bring back if we think of any kind of changes or whatever. So Diane and I can definitely look at it.
I'm sure they'd love a piece of clothing and have you sign it for
Sure.
them, Troy, or something. And
Yeah, can do.
We just looked at employee recognition, so we're leaving that,
Okay.
the program for
Got a
the
nice
next
watch.
council. Company vehicles we did. Corporate credit cards, HR 4.22. Company cellular, mobile, and electronic devices, HR 4.23. Parking, HR 4.24. Stresses limited parking, as well as visitor parking spaces. Any further comments, questions? Critical illness leave, HR 4.25. Ooh, I don't like this one. Child death or disappearance leave, HR 4.26. Suggestion program, HR 4.27. Anything? Got myself a little note here. Oh, I know what I wanted to know. Who looks after this, or is this an internal volunteer position? Does it alternate? The person who's looking after the suggestions. Is that you?
Well, I'll be honest, we really haven't had anything to do with this too much, but it's something that senior managers will have to look at, discuss at our next meeting, and come up with who is going to take the lead. So
Yeah, or if it rotates over a couple of years, because it, by the way it reads, I thought this is something somebody might like to volunteer for or would be volunteering for. Domestic sexual violence leave, HR 4.28. The next section we're going into is HR 5, and the first one, HR 5.01, employees relations principles. Any comments, questions? Dispute resolution, HR 5.02. Workplace harassment, HR 5.03.
HR downloads did make some changes and more in definitions and to be compliant with the Employment Standards Act. So those changes are already done.
Okay. Accommodation on the basis of disability, HR 5.04. Conduct and behavior, HR 5.05. Public service, HR 5.06.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes,
And I know there's been a number of concerns in the last little while. So when somebody goes online and they fill out a customer complaint or a compliment thing, is there a standard right now that staff have to get back to them within a reasonable time, or is it showing that there's a log? So maybe Pat can explain how it works. If somebody, say on a Saturday, puts in a complaint about short-term rentals, what happens to that email when it comes into the town? Do you get it Monday morning, or?
So if it, excuse me, if it's short-term rentals, that one would go to Daryl and to Rob. But Jennifer Steen has the ability to go in and see if there's been a complaint, because we've had someone called in or someone sent in the form, didn't hear back from us, contacted me as the clerk, and I was able to get Jennifer to go back and see when that initial complaint came in. And then I followed up with the individual and then the department head that was involved with it, so.
So I guess my question is there, it talks about initial investigation to be conducted within 3 to 5 days. You know, is somebody, I guess the concern is that nobody's getting back to them, right? To even acknowledge that their complaint was put in. Who monitors that to make sure that the manager or somebody is getting back within 2 or 3 days to?
Well,
CAO
yeah,
gets
I'm
all of
on every email that comes in during those complaint forms. So it would be up to me to ensure that department heads get back at the required amount of time for those complaints. So if it goes to planning, you know, I'm on that email. If it goes to building, I'm on that email, or admin, so, or public works, parks, whatever. So I've put my name on, so I get everyone, as well as it'll go to the appropriate department head.
Okay.
And so it's going to be, it'll be my responsibility to ensure that department heads get back and follow up and make sure they follow up with the complaint.
So then who fills out the log then?
It's gonna probably have to be me.
Because it
Sometime on
says
the
if
email.
it's still open or if it's
Yeah.
been closed or whatever, because there has been a few instances where people have said they've put in, I'll use the short-term rental ones, right? That they put in a couple and not heard back from the town and they're just wondering what the status is, right? And I tell them, well, I don't get involved in what the investigation is, but somebody at least should be getting back to you to say that you've received it and it's currently being looked at.
Yeah, that will be my responsibility for the department heads.
So once it comes back to you, you sign off
That's right.
and it's done.
I was just gonna make a comment that I think we still get way too many complaints coming into our individual emails. And I think probably that's a good reminder about orientation of the new council, that you just say you need to fill out that
Yeah.
complaint, because then it's documented. There's no, council's not getting involved in, unless, and see, and then council needs to get involved when the complaints aren't answered, not to try to fix the complaints.
Agree 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it saves us getting phone calls and
Yeah.
as well as the email.
And the biggest issue is not that it's being looked at, it's just nobody's got back to them to
Communication.
acknowledge it. And there has to be, I think we talked about it before, whether it's a clerical staff or somebody, even to get back to say, thank you very much, Sherry, for putting in your concern. We're looking at it and we will have the appropriate person get back to you.
That staff can impress upon the new council is how that works. Because every councillor newly elected wants to solve the problems of the world. And I got caught in that in my infancy as a councillor, trying, and I think it was actually Troy that kind of straightened me out and said, you're going to get yourself in a lot of doo-doo here. The way to do it is, and it made a big difference to the way I did business after that. And as Sherry said, if the response isn't dealt with by the town, then the phone call comes to you and you advocate for whomever is, you need to advocate for. But that was one of the mistakes of a new counselor that I made too often.
Yeah.
And, you want to be, and I mean, I've seen it so many times where people try to influence a decision that they really shouldn't be trying to influence. And, there's a process for a reason.
The other thing, when I first started sending them to the complaints section, I didn't add that it may take some time. So I learned that pretty quickly too, because then you'd get a second or a third call. I sent it, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, but I think, Troy, you would,
Yeah,
it
so
might be the first lesson that you teach this new council is follow the procedure.
because they initially will get a lot of calls as well.
They will.
Usually, yeah.
Everybody's got a lobby.
Okay, are we good with this one now? Civil marriage solemnization, HR 507. Straightforward. Environmental responsibility, HR 5.08. Discipline, HR 5.09.
Our old policy, we just updated this to make sure that we weren't on the hook for constructive dismissal or whatever. So it's been up, you have the updated version, but our last policy needed to be changed. Which is all part of the dismissal.
Personal information protection, HR 5.10. Our records retention program, HR 5.11.
Which we've done a lot of work on.
We've done a lot and accomplished a lot. Those
That was,
staff that have worked on that program put
Yeah.
a lot of hours in.
it's really come ahead.
And are we caught up to date, Pat? No, not yet. Are we up to 1970 yet? Must be close. Computer, email, cell phone, and internet use, HR 5.12. Protection and use of corporate property, HR 5.13. Religious accommodation, HR 5.14. Dress code, HR 5.15.
I would like to make a comment about dress code. I'd like to see a guy right of me. Should be,
Suit and tie.
well, or, a Speedo or something. Or different, so they could stand out a bit.
Whistleblower protection, HR
Well, that whistle on me now.
5.16.
No whistling, that's basically it.
Community service, HR 5.17. So these are for community service leave. Instant messaging, HR 5.18. Social media, HR 5.19. Bigger print must be important. Media relations, HR 5.20. Searches and surveillance, HR 5.21. Personal relationships, HR 5.22. Access to employee records, HR 5.23. Accommodation on the basis of family status, HR 5.24. Accommodation for breastfeeding, HR 5.25. Accommodation on the basis of gender expression or gender identity, HR 5.26. Handling unreasonable customer behavior, HR 5.27. Anything on that one? We're moving to section 6, health and safety principles, HR 6.01. These are the principles of health and safety. Standard operating procedure, sorry, who has a question?
Just through you, Mayor, I just wondering, this entire section is is all legislated, right?
Yes,
There's-
it is. And I will say that we even had a, inspection done of the workplace within the last, 2 weeks, I believe. So Ministry of Labor came in and all our, there was a couple things that we needed to be updated, but we do our monthly inspections. So Ministry of Labor was fine with what we are doing and satisfied. Again, we did have two things that we needed to provide them and update, but Ministry of Labor was happy with everything. And they are going to visit our other sites as well. And so,
Good.
yeah, we are very compliant with this.
So do you want to do all of 6 as one? No,
Well,
no.
I
How
don't think
far?
there's anything that we can change
No.
on it.
No,
No,
there
it's
isn't, and
legislative.
it's
To
identical
how
to-
far?
Is this identical to yours? Because it's identical to the school boards as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all, it's legislative.
Return to work program, that's 18.
So I will say that obviously we see the size of this document and then the health and safety at the end of it. I don't know if she's on here right now, but she's not. But we are going to have Erin sort of take the lead on HR and human resources, HR and health and safety. She has a 3-year, diploma in this field. So she's on top of everything. So she will from, in the next coming, week or two, be taking the lead on this. Now that this is a document that's not just on the shelf, you know what, we're going to really utilize, implement it and get it in play. So Erin will be taking the lead on that very soon.
Good.
Through the mayor and to Troy, does that have any financial implication?
Nicole, do you want to touch on that? I discussed it at council a bit, but Erin is going to be in charge of HR, health and safety and payroll. So, and then Karen's going to do a lot of the payables right now. Nicole, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so I mean, there'll be a shift within the department that will, like you say, mean moving payables to Karen. So it will add hours to Karen. It won't add any new staff. And it will create a better equilibrium within the department, as well as right now we have a real, I think, inequity in our HR. No one is specifically responsible for that. So, I mean, I've been doing some of it. Troy's been doing some of it. Pat's been doing some of it. Erin has already been doing pieces of that as well. And our goal is really to make sure that nothing is, dropping between the cracks, and that our policies are actually being adhered to, and that there is someone within the staff that is well versed in them. So that will be once these policies are all updated and approved. She will be actually doing a really good review of it so that she has a full understanding of all of them.
And then we still will utilize the county as we have been, just on an hourly basis for any big items if needed. So, but this is, as you can see, it's so important to know this document and to make sure all staff go by it. It's something that has to be, looked at and worked on every day. So I'm really finding that out now. So we do have a staff member that, as I said, has 3-year diploma in this, and she will be fantastic at doing it. Financial implications, it will be minimal, but there will be some, but it won't be a large amount. So.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Gibson.
I'd like to suggest we skip ahead to 6.25, because I think all that's in that section prior to that is all legislated.
Yeah. Is there any other questions or comments in between?
So are we,
The
are we
start
skipping
and-
6.13?
We're moving, do you have a comment about 6.13?
Well, there was one about,
Cell phone.
well, yeah, but 6.06, I just wanted to ask Troy again. It talks about the safety shoe subsidy, which is $250 a year. I'm hoping that that will be the same as the uniforms come budget time, that Brian can say he has 10 employees times $250. It's $2,500 because that's an actual policy thing that, you know, council can't
Yep.
change.
Yeah, it'll be definitely marked out a lot more clearer this year.
Okay, and then just before Gail, on section 6.13, the cell phone use, 5.04, are those data management roaming costs up to date, or is that something, Nicole, you have to look at? Are they, talks about 6 gigs for $29, and I don't know whether they're up to date or not. Those things tend to change all the time.
Yeah, we may have to review that. I personally have not had a good look at that one.
Okay, and just one question, and maybe somebody more apt at cell phones and stuff like that, but it talks about under 6.13, users are strictly prohibited from jailbreaking and rooting on the phone. What is that? I don't know what jailbreaking and rooting is. Does anybody? I guess we're all the same age. We don't know what that means, but I don't know what it means. It says on your phone, you are prohibited from jailbreaking or rooting or performing any other changes that disables or modifies the hardware.
Yeah.
Operating, I don't know. I guess that's for the younger crowd then.
So-
Okay, well, if we don't know what it is, we can't,
It's
we
illegal.
can't be accused of doing it.
It's illegal anyway, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move forward to 6.25. Inclement weather. Do you have comments on
Right,
that?
and as long as everybody's fine with that, I don't want to rush people through, but
No,
I,
it's fine.
No, it's good.
Inclement weather is not something that I'm planning on. I'm going to leave it with you guys.
Trenching. 6.26. Digging a trench in the ground. We don't need to deal with that.
Do any of our guys do that, Troy? Because there was a big accident in Ajax
Yep.
just a month ago where people actually died, right?
No, we don't have anything that would, of that size that would require that. So we keep it in there, but we don't do a lot of trenching.
Okay.
Emergency procedure, HR 6.27. I think we got that looked after pretty well. Fitness to work, HR 6.28. Restricted areas, restricted access. This deals too with flus and epidemics and whatnot. Any questions or comments? Work from home, HR 6.30. Anything?
I will say, because of the pandemic, we have had to make some technical changes or whatever, so certain positions can work from home. So we are now in a situation that certain, as I said, certain jobs can do their job from home. Not every day or whatever, but you know, for whatever reason, we do have the technology to work from home.
Do we have a limit?
I haven't had to force anything like that. It's usually, you know, for emergency or a day here, a day there. But during that pandemic, we did have some people working from home. But there is no limit. It would be up to my discretion.
I have some issues with this one. Troy and I've discussed them before. And especially with 704J. Train the people at home to minimize interruptions during work hours. Employees should determine what interruptions are acceptable and develop ground rules for their families to follow about interruptions while working at home. The county policy is children under 12 and under or under 12 need daycare if the parent is working from home. And I think that's good. I think we should follow that as well because it's pretty hard to work and stay focused or be in a meeting with little children. And I would like to see that in our policy. And I'd also like to, are we covered under the employee needs to be, there were 3 things in the county policy anyways, and the second one was the employee needs to be immediately available to come into work if they need to be at the office or at the work site. And that, you know, if Troy were trying to get a hold of, for the third one, if Troy's trying to get a hold of somebody at home, they need to be available as if they were available in the office. So by email, phone, whatever, but that's going to be all set up, but not that he needs to wait on them. So I think if those aren't in, but they're not in, they're not specifically written, I think they should be.
Can I ask, oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't have a problem with writing that in, but I think in all cases, it has to be on a case by case because you can't just have a, you know, an overriding umbrella policy because situations will change. For instance, I had several people that couldn't come to work because they didn't have a daycare provider because their daycare provider had shut down because of the pandemic. So what do you do then? If you want to continue on with your business operations, you have to be flexible. So I think we just have to make sure if we're writing it in that the discretion is that it's operations, the CAO makes the final decision and it is on a case by case basis.
Well, I can agree with that. I just think that it should be in there that, you know, because then it's more specific to the employees, because not every employee either can work from home with what their job is.
Yeah.
So that way it makes it a little fairer.
I agree with Sherry too, because with the pandemic too, if you've got small children, once they get a sniffle or a cough or anything, they phone you and they tell you your son or daughter's not coming tomorrow. And all of a sudden it's like, oh geez, I have to work from home, right? So I understand the part, Mayor, about, you know, children under 12, but I agree with Sherry. There has to be some leeway that, you know, there are extenuating circumstances that you might get stuck with no daycare and then you're going to have to do it from home. So, and those are specific jobs, like you said, Troy, that can work from home. We're obviously not going to let a guy that's driving the snowplow work from home to whatever, right? So,
yeah, professional discretion is the responsibility of the CAO. That's why we pay him or her. And, you know, I wouldn't want to tie his hands. So that would be my comment. And just for clarification, did you say that they had to report if they were asked to report? In other words, come into work?
The county policy is if they're needed at the workplace, they need to be able to come into work if they're called.
Okay. So, yeah, so that's another reason to support the CAO makes the call, because, you know, I can see situations where that wouldn't be possible. You know, I could give you a couple, I'm sure you can.
Well, inclement weather, you know, and he's not going to call them on that.
Right, or maybe you're out of province, at a conference or something, you know, I mean.
Yeah, well,
you
yeah,
have
but
to use
that's,
his sense, his
that's,
common sense.
yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
I know, but I'm just thinking, you know.
If
someone could-
something come up.
Yeah.
That needed that person, then they should be available to come into their workplace.
Well, hopefully, again, the CAO would, you know, make a common sense decision based on whether that was even possible or not. Because he would know the circumstance, or she would, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, because I mean, I've had a couple of situations in my career where I've actually, people that were supposed to be on sick leave were actually on vacation in Mexico. So I'm thinking, you know, I needed the flexibility to be able to deal with that. And I wouldn't want my hands tied to something that they could get around.
But at the same time, how is it all being recorded? Like if you've got a child home sick.
Yeah.
That needs a lot of attention, you're not able to work. Right?
I get that.
So is that a sick day?
Yeah.
That's a sick day for the parent, right? Or an emergency day.
Yeah.
That's not a work from home day.
I get that. And then I would say, you know, Troy would make that call, right? So, or I shouldn't be saying Troy, but this
Yeah.
director would make that call. Yeah, no, I think the spirit, I think we're all on the
Yeah.
same wavelength as far as spirit goes, but I wouldn't tie anybody's hands.
But then I also look at, there's PA days, however many there are.
Yeah.
There's those working days. They're working days for the employee. They're not days that you may or may not be able to work from home. And you got March break and Christmas holidays
Oh, yeah.
that our staff are working, so. I think it's a tough subject, and I think it needs to be a little bit clearer or made very clear to the employees. And it doesn't say that in here.
Yeah, and I think as long as it's written in and there's always an understanding that it is at the discretion of the CAO and on a case-by-case basis, then, you know, because I don't think we can be so prescriptive that we're not going to cover every situation all the time. But you do want to make sure, I guess, for the CAO purposes and for managers that it's backed up if there is a problem, that there's something in writing that they can fall back on, not that they can choose not to follow. The problem is if it's in policy and you choose not to follow it, where does that lead you?
Right.
I agree with Deputy Mayor Gibson, because even before COVID, we never heard of working from home.
No.
This is just a new thing. So is it? I don't know what
So,
the policy would have to be written as, but, you know, it's going to have to be CAO.
I just think it needs to be fair to all the employees. We've got lots of young mothers here. And there's children to be looked after. That their jobs, you can't work from home.
Well, and these are living documents. So I would say if staff run into issues with any of these policies, they're going to come back to council with a revision. Correct? At any time?
Hopefully.
Yep.
Right.
Hopefully. Yeah, and the other thing is coverage. Do we do call forwarding?
Yep, we're able, we have that technology to do that. But I will say to the council, yeah, I've had staff work from home for, every now and then for the past, 3 years, and I have had not one issue. They're always available. We have Zoom, we have staff meetings and a staff member or two have worked from home. So we're still able to do our daily operations, and it hasn't been an issue. We have great staff, they're trustworthy, and it works. It's working.
Is that something I could mention, Troy? Do you have is there a policy or something that when staff are off on vacation or out of the office that day, are they required to change their voicemail? Because there has been times where I've left a voicemail and then found out, oh, that person's off for a week.
Yeah,
So
I don't think there is a policy in there that says that, but that's something that we can discuss, and definitely need training on how to do it on my own phone, so.
I learned how to do it, so it'll be
I
easy for
think
you.
that should be something you should
Oh,
look
that-
into. If you're away for
Yeah.
a week and people are leaving a message there on a Monday and they don't hear back by Wednesday and something, I mean, you just say, I'm sorry, I'm not here for the week. If it's an emergency, you can contact Pat, and then that should be something that
Yeah.
should be,
Routine.
yeah, good customer service, you
Yep.
know, so that you know. And to what the mayor is saying, if you're not in the office, then make sure that your phone is forwarded to
But
your
do
house.
people have their cell phone numbers, the staff cell phone numbers?
For,
If they needed to get a hold of a staff person, they usually phone this office. They don't phone their cell numbers, do they?
no, like Joe
Like
Q
they're, like
Public
if you're
would,
gonna be working from home or absent, other than your vacations and whatnot, that was a question I was asked one time. Should the staff cell phone number be available to leave a message?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, if I phone Pat's office number and I get Pat on and she says, I'm out for the day, please leave a message. I'll get back to you when I return to the office on Wednesday. That's good enough. If I know, then I'm going to call somebody else, fine. But I wouldn't say, oh, you can contact me on my cell phone, because she's obviously off, right? If she's working from
No,
home, I
working
would-
from home.
well, then she should forward her phone to her home phone, so that, because the other issue is how often are staff then phoning in to check their messages if you're working from home?
Or the other thing is, if there's something that's maybe not urgent, but somebody needs an answer to, is the partner checking the messages? Maybe they could just get back and answer something, a date,
I don't,
whatever.
I don't think people would share their voicemail password with other staff to,
I do.
Yeah, so when
Well-
Troy's away, I check his messages.
Oh,
When
do you?
I'm away, Yolanda checks mine.
oh,
Yeah, that sort of thing.
So
wow.
we do have a good system.
Yeah.
Again, I'm guilty of not putting it on my message, which I need to start. I just need to be trained in how to do it.
Yeah, I think that we've identified that.
Yeah.
I think that should be set up for everyone.
Yep, no, I
I
think.
kind of avoided that because I use my own cell personal phone number, and people call me on my personal phone, whether it's business or personal. It's just the way I do business. It makes it a little smoother for me to respond. to
But we
calls.
can bring it up at our next staff meeting, just
Well,
to
there's
make
some
sure
kind
that,
of a call forwarding.
Oh, yeah, it
Yep.
can be done
Yep.
easily.
So
We just need to do it.
we can talk about it as staff and just make sure,
Good-
it's
good-
really all
good
about
idea.
communication. So, we just, in certain areas, we may need to step up, and I'm one for communicating when we are away and whatever, and just make sure that the public can access us, if we are working from home for whatever reason. So, nope, we can discuss that.
Well,
Also-
and this is a people business, right?
Yep.
They expect it, and again, communications, like you say.
The other thing is that, I have been guilty of calling Troy a couple of times when he's on vacation.
Mhm.
And so that wouldn't happen if I bumped into that message, because he's, I'd call him and it'll say, I'm sorry, I'm out of the office, please refer your call to so-and-so. Then I wouldn't be, interrupting him in the pool, which, like a beached whale. But that is just something that I would, prefer not to do. So you can sort of blow water on that one.
And it doesn't hurt to say, I'm on vacation, please contact so-and-so at such a number, extension.
That should be standard.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, and now that we're on the topic, another policy that not in here is the disconnect policy.
Yes.
Yes, because sometimes I
Yeah.
do get calls on a Saturday night.
Yep.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't gonna get it.
So we will add the disconnect
Yes.
policy and make sure that the next council is well aware of that. Sorry, I forgot all about it. Just-
well, and it's all up to
Councillor
date.
Phillip just reminded me.
So we're okay with that now? And the disconnect policy is already up to date.
Yeah, we've approved that just
Fine.
recently.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
disconnected you.
Emergency leave, declared emergencies, HR 6.31.
Oh, excuse
Anything?
No. Getting punchy.
Contact control and monitoring during a pandemic, HR 632. Be in place till at least spring. Healthy workplace in a pandemic, HR 6.33. Are these hours or these ones aren't standard government ones. These are ours. Healthy workplace in a pandemic. Pandemic crisis support, HR 6.34. Anti-stigma statement, HR 6.35. And we have our PTSD prevention plan. That's all pretty standard. We've had that for a while. Would I get a number on it? HR 6.36. Post-traumatic stress. So we've got all those. Is that it? That's the end. So we've got this all done now before lunch. We won't have to stay after.
Stay after school.
Thank you. We did really well.
Took longer than I thought, actually. Right to lunchtime.
Break for lunch? Well, just let me get the bylaw. Any other comments on any of these that you've forgotten or wish to address? Yes,
Just at the back, there is the AODA. It's the accessibility
yeah,
and also the preventing COVID-19 in the workplace policy. But it doesn't have a number. Either one of them don't have it, so we'll have to number them. but they
you'll
are
have
at
to
the back.
number them, but they're,
When we number the pages, you'll be able to find it easier.
well, that's okay. This is just the draft.
This,
So is there anything in the AODA? I thought that was pretty standard, and the preventing COVID in the workplace policy. We're good?
Works good for me.
I'm very impressed with the thoroughness of
Yes.
the policies. Actually, it's nice to review them and
Yeah, it's a good step for the future council.
It's done. Now they can review them and maybe look at a few at a time and decide if they want to change anything.
Now, Pat, would you like this back?
We'll have to update the ones that we're gonna make the changes to.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you, I mean, you don't want me to keep this? No, so I'll give it back to you now. Okay.
So I'll do the confirming bylaw for this. Be it resolved that bylaw number 113-2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special council session held on Thursday, October 6th, 2022 be read and deemed passed the 6th day of October 2022. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hogg and Deputy Mayor Gibson, all in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the special session of council of Thursday, October 6, 2022 be adjourned at 11:58 a.m. Mover? Councillor Booth and second Councillor Philip, all in favor? Carried, and we'll be back at 12:30 for regular council.